Baal wasn't just another ancient god. He was the greatest rival of the true God. He seduced nations with promises of rain, fertility, and success. And even God's own people fell into his trap again and again. To the eyes of many, Baal seemed powerful, generous, even real. But behind that mask of thunder and abundance hid something much darker, the spiritual counterfeit that tried to replace the Creator himself. When we look at history, we're not just studying mythology. We're re-looking at a mirror, because the same forces that deceived Israel still whisper to us today. This isn't just about an old idol made of stone. It is about what happens when humanity trades the invisible God for something that feels more useful. So who exactly was Baal? Why did he hold such power over an entire generation of believers? And what can his downfall teach us about the idols that still rule hearts today? The word Baal simply means Lord or owner. In ancient Canaan, every region had its own version, a local Baal believed to control rain, harvests, and fertility. Think of it as a spiritual franchise. One brand, many branches, each promising prosperity to whoever offered sacrifices. To a nation that lived off the land, it made sense. Israel's economy depended on rain, and when the heavens closed, fear always followed. That fear became the open door through which Baal entered. But the true God had already proven himself as the giver of life and rain. Still, Baal's cult offered something seductive: visible idols, sensual rituals, and the illusion of control. You could see Baal touch his statue and buy his favor. The invisible God of Israel required trust, holiness, and patience, qualities much harder to sustain than a quick offering at a pagan altar. In this video, we're going to uncover why that false god became so tempting, how God exposed his power as pure illusion, and what this ancient story still reveals about the idols of our modern world. To understand why Baal seemed so convincing, we need to look at his story, the mythology that surrounded him. In the Canaanite legends, Baal was the storm god who fought against the sea god Yam and later battled Mot, the god of death and drought. When Baal won, the rains came, crops flourished, and life returned. When he died, the earth dried up and the land starved. It was a narrative designed to explain the seasons, a spiritual drama tied to the rhythms of agriculture. Imagine being a farmer in ancient Israel. Every cloud, every drop of rain could mean life or death for your family. In that context, the story of Baal made emotional sense. It gave people a system they could see, a cycle they could predict. It felt practical. You offered sacrifices, performed the rituals, and expected nature to respond. Faith became a transaction, not a relationship. And that's what made Baal's worship so deceptive. It mixed fear with convenience. It seemed logical, scientific even. But beneath that apparent order was the same old lie. That man can manipulate the divine instead of submitting to it. And it's right there, in that storm, in that illusion of control, that Scripture steps in with a bold response. Psalm 29 takes the very imagery that the Canaanites used to glorify Baal, thunder, lightning, the voice over the waters, and gives it back to its rightful owner, the Lord of Israel. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. Every flash of lightning, every echo of thunder is no longer a symbol of Baal's might, but a declaration of God's dominion. The psalmist wasn't just writing poetry. He was reclaiming reality. He was saying, "You've been looking at the sky and giving credit to the wrong name." It's as if God himself tore down the billboard that said, "Baal brings the rain," and replaced it with his own signature across the horizon. Nature was never under the control of idols. It was, and always will be, under the voice of the Creator. This was the quiet but powerful way the Bible dismantled Baal's mythology, not by ignoring it, but by rewriting it. It didn't deny the storm. It simply revealed who truly commands it. But God didn't just speak through poetry. He demonstrated his authority in history. When Elijah appeared before King Ahab, he declared a drought. No rain, no dew, not a drop until God said so. It was a direct strike at Baal's supposed power. The storm god was about to be silenced in his own domain. For 3.5 years the skies were shut, and every prayer to Baal turned into dust. Then came Mount Carmel, the showdown. 2 altars, 2 deities, 1 challenge, the God who answers by fire, he is God. The prophets of Baal cried out, cut themselves, and shouted from morning till evening, but nothing happened. Their Lord of Thunder couldn't even spark a flame. Elijah, in contrast, drenched his altar with water 3 times until everything was soaked. And then he prayed. Fire fell from heaven, consuming not just the sacrifice, but the stones, the dust, and the water itself. And when the fire proved who was real, the rain returned. The sequence was divine choreography: drought, fire, rain, silence, judgment, mercy. God defeated Baal not in theory, but on his own battlefield, turning the so-called Lord of Storms into a symbol of shame. Even after such undeniable demonstrations, Israel kept slipping back into Baal's worship. Why? Because Baal's religion satisfied something deeper, not spiritual truth, but human craving. He offered images they could see, altars they could touch, and rituals that appealed to the flesh. The invisible God demanded faith. Baal offered spectacle. One required obedience, the other offered entertainment. Idolatry always hides behind what looks practical. When the harvest failed, people thought, maybe a small offering to Baal couldn't hurt. It began as insurance, a spiritual plan B, but soon became dependency. Then came the political side. Kings like Ahab and Jezebel institutionalized that worship because it brought influence and alliances. What started as fear became convenience. What began as compromise became culture. And yet every fall into idolatry carried a lesson. God's judgment wasn't cruel, it was corrective. He let his people taste the emptiness of false gods to bring them back to reality. The story of Israel's weakness isn't just history, it's a diagnosis of the human heart. The constant temptation to trade faith for control and holiness for comfort. When we step back from the ancient world, it's easy to think Israel's struggle was primitive, bowing to statues, burning offerings. But Baal never really disappeared. He just changed form. Today, he hides behind money, success, pleasure, and power. The same promises dressed in modern clothes. We no longer build altars in temples, but we sacrifice our time, our integrity, and sometimes even our families on the altars of ambition and desire. Elijah's question still echoes through time. How long will you waver between 2 opinions? It's not just a question for the past. It's for every person who tries to serve both God and self. The idols of today don't demand blood. They demand attention. They whisper, you can control your future, define your truth, and build your own heaven. But just like Baal, they never answer when it truly matters. The story of Baal isn't about superstition, it's about misplaced trust. And maybe the greatest act of faith in our age isn't to believe in God once, but to stop believing in all the smaller gods we've built to replace him. At the end of it all, the lesson is simple, but piercing. Only the Lord is worthy of worship. Every other god, no matter how attractive, ends in silence. Baal fell on Mount Carmel, but his spirit still tempts the human heart, the urge to control, to see, to possess. God doesn't compete with idols because he doesn't need to. He reveals himself not through manipulation, but through presence. The same fire that fell on Elijah's altar still burns in hearts that choose truth over illusion. The story isn't about one nation's failure. It's about the mercy of a God who keeps calling his people back. The droughts in our lives, the unanswered prayers, the waiting, Sometimes they're not punishment, but reminders. God allows emptiness so we can recognize where we've been feeding on lies. So when Elijah's words reach us, "If the Lord is God, follow him," they're not a threat. They're an invitation to return, to trust again, to let the true rain fall on the soil of a surrendered heart. If what you've heard today touched your heart, take a moment to pause. Don't just move to the next video. Breathe, think, and ask yourself, what modern Baal have I been trusting? Maybe it's success, maybe comfort, maybe control. But none of those things can send rain to your soul. Only God can. If you felt something awaken inside you, let this be your turning point. Return to Him. Talk to Him. He's not far and He's not angry. He's waiting. If this message brought light to your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it too. And if you want to keep learning about spiritual truth, stay connected, because every week we bring reflections that help you walk closer to the one true God. God bless you.